Okay, let's get rolling because I know you guys have a lot to tell us about these lovely plants. So welcome. Today's webinar is Ask the Experts about Angelonia. This is part of our celebration of the Year of the Angelonia. I am Diane Blazek. I'm the Executive Director of National Garden Bureau, and I am going to introduce our panelists. I'm also going to introduce one person behind the scenes. Gail Paps from our office is here. So if you see somebody posting a lot of links in the chat, that is Gail, and she's providing additional information to you. And by the way, I will be monitoring the chat. So please, at any time, if you have questions on Angelonia, post those in the chat. The format of today is we're going to have some general overview explanations about Angelonia. We're going to go through a little PowerPoint of some of the varieties from our panelists. And then after that, we're going to really dive deep into how to grow them, how to care for them, where to grow them, etc. And all that will come from our panelists, which I would love to introduce right now. I'll just name each one of you and then toss it to you so that you can introduce yourselves and your companies. So we have Maria Bollinger from Ball Flora Plant. We have Brian Krug from Syngenta, and we have Stephen Engel from Pan American Seeds. So staying with that same order, Maria, why don't you introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Maria Bollinger, and I work for Ball Flora Plant Selecta. That's a part of the Ball Horticultural family. I work in the southern regions, Florida up to Kentucky, over to Texas, and I'm happy to talk to you about Angelonia today.
Thank you. And Brian.
Hi, my name is Brian Krug. I'm a technical lead for Syngenta Flowers. Syngenta is often a well-known name in the agricultural community, but Syngenta also has a division of flowers. So I work with greenhouse growers primarily from the Mississippi West to make sure that they grow their plants the best that they can, so that you guys can enjoy them when you buy them at the garden center.
Thank you. And Stephen.
Hello, I'm Stephen Engel. I work for Pan American Seed, which is also part of Ball Horticulture Company. And everything we breed, we bring to market from seed. So I work with growers in the Western U.S. So from Texas to Minnesota West is my area.
So I just want to summarize a little bit. I hear people saying technical growing, etc. We have three excellent panelists here. If these three people help growers throughout North America grow the best Angelonia possible, you know they're going to be able to help you grow the best Angelonia possible. So thank you guys for coming today. So I want to start with some overall questions. We have this as our year of, and in this article, it says that Angelonia is sometimes called a summer snapdragon. So who wants to talk about that? Is that like a misnomer? Should it not be called? I don't think it's in the same plant class at all. So why is this a common name?
I can tackle that one, Diane. I think it comes down to like kind of the habit of the plant and the flower structure. You know, if you look at the individual flowers of an Angelonia, it looks like a mini snapdragon. It's not exactly like it, but it's very, very similar. And you know, snapdragons like a little bit cooler weather, and Angelonia do much better in the warmer summer. So like that's and snapdragons is such a common, you know, like that traditional garden flower that people really know. And Angelonia, like I think people see it, but don't necessarily know the name as well as snapdragon. So that's my take on why it's called the summer snapdragon, because of the time of the year that it really thrives, and it just looks a lot like a mini snapdragon.
Anybody else want to add anything to that? He covered it. Okay, that's awesome. So after this session, then everybody will be more familiar with the Angelonia, right? So where did Angelonias come from? There's obviously been plant finders and they have found these somewhere. Are they native to North America? I mean, they are an annual, so in most parts of the country. But who wants to talk about that? Where's their origin?
So I can talk about that one. Most of the Angelonias that are on the commercial market are Angelonia augustifolia. There's other Angelonia species out there, but the most common one is the augustifolia. The augustifolia are native to Mexico and some of the islands there. And so it's really that central, if you look at the equator, it's really that Mexico and that Central America type native. So they're not native to North America, but they do very well, especially in the heat of the southern U.S.
And so with those other types of Angelonia, are those types just not cultivated much? Are we not seeing them? They don't have as much to give as the more common one. Is that true?
Yeah, the augustifolia are the ones that are going to have the most color range, the nicest plant habits, the best plant structure. And some of the breeders do work with some of the other, trying to bring in some interspecifics and bringing in some of the attributes of some of the other species. But right now, everything that's on the market is augustifolia.
For now, the breeders are always bringing us wonderful things, right? So yeah, go ahead, Maria.
Oh, sorry. I was going to say some of the other species are more vine-like, and some are traditionally, say, from other parts of South America, Brazil and such, that are used for medicinal purposes and such, or have been. So like Stephen said, the breeders have taken the augustifolia because that has the main attributes that we're looking for for the home gardener, for the garden: large bloom, good branching, good leaf color, that type of thing.
Okay, great. So now, because all three of you are coming from breeding companies, I would love to know, without you giving any trade secrets, what kind of things are you working on for the future? Typically all the breeders are really working to make the home gardener more successful, make it easier. So now, Maria, you guys are vegetatively propagated. Stephen, you
Right.
guys are seed, and Brian, you guys do both. Not sure if you have Angelonia from both vegetative and seed, but let's start with you, Maria. What are some of the things that your breeders are looking to bring forward on new Angelonia types?
Well, very exciting for us for 2025. We have the first black Angelonia, the first black bloom. Very exciting. It's a deep, rich, dark purple that portrays as black in the garden. That'll look great in combinations against whites and yellows and even other purples and blues. Very excited about that. And then in 2024 here, we introduced the first true red Angelonia called Ruby Sangria. So we're looking at unusual colors, but we're also looking, one of my goals is working with the breeders is long bloom time, and all Angelonia bloom a long time, but some have a longer recycling type of a rebloom period. So that's something that we always work towards, and flexibility in the stems and good branching. We also have an extra large Angelonia for 2025 being introduced also for large combination planters. So if you need an upright component to your combination that's nice and strong and long bloom time and good branching, that's what we're looking at too. So we're very excited about Angelonia Ball Floor plant.
Excellent. Okay, Brian, what about you guys? What are you working on with Angelonia?
Well, in addition, I mean, I think Maria summed it up a lot, that we're as general and breeders, we're looking for garden performance and unique colors in anything that we grow. But to take a little bit different spin on it, again, more broadly with anything that we breed, we're keeping not just the gardener in mind, but also the grower in mind. It has to have garden performance, but we're always looking for ease of production. in the greenhouse. Like, what can we grow that's going to be, we can grow at a higher density so that it's like more economical to grow, or things that are resistant to different diseases, or just can grow faster, so the greenhouse growers can turn their greenhouses over more time so that they're more productive. And then all of that stuff, hopefully translates to more value for the consumer, because the growers can be more profitable with less inputs, and therefore that benefits the gardener.
Great. Okay, Stephen, and from a seed perspective.
Yeah, I was gonna say, so I'm a little bit different than what Maria and Brian just talked about, because we do seed, and we're the only company that has a seed Angelonia on the market currently. Now we're still breeding for some of the same things that they talked about: garden performance, ease of use for the growers. But getting Angelonias from seed is very difficult, and so we are working on some of the colors, some unique habits, and trying to bring those from seed instead of just a vegetative option.
Great. More variety for everybody, right?
That's right.
Okay. Well, I think people will want to see some of these varieties. So we have, I don't know, about a dozen or so slides here. And each one of these slides is from a different breeder. Well, some of them we have multiple slides for different colors in a series. So we'll just hop right in. And who is Angel Mist? I would like to talk about that.
That's me. That's Ball Floor Plant Variety. That's a series of Angelonia called Angel Mist, and they are a more spreading type. The habit is so it spreads, it's very well branched. It kind of has a more horizontal branching pattern, and lots of bloom. These are great in hanging baskets, but they also are really beautiful in the ground too, as a border of such, because they'll be low growing and lots of blooms, spike-like blooms on them. So it's a spreading habit. We have the dark purple, we have white, and we have pink in that series.
Are these newer than
then,
the berry
yes,
sparkler?
also the berry sparkler and bluebird. Thank you. So these
Okay.
are two bicolors in that series also. And you can see the center photograph there has them utilized in the ground as a ground cover also.
Awesome.
So nice color pattern, lots of bloom, a more spreading habit.
Okay, thank you. And then we next have Angel Dance.
Angel Dance, the breeder named this because it's kind of a wispy type of bloom, and in the wind it kind of wispy sways in the wind there. There's two colors. There's the purple and the pink bicolors. These are great. They're a little bit tall. They could be used in the garden as a backdrop, but they also mix really well together with the two colors, and then also as an upright component to a combination planter.
Great, thank you. And Archangel.
Archangel is our medium-sized growing upright habit. These are high utility, meaning you can use them in the ground, you can use them alone in a container, and you can also use them in a combination, as you see there. Lots of colors, and our newest addition, like I said earlier, was the Ruby Sangria for 2024, and that's a deep red in that series. I don't think there it is on the left. Yes, and you can see it in the ground there. So that's a really nice deep rich color.
And I think we put the pink in here, and there's the Ruby Sangria with the raspberry and the white.
Yes.
Excellent. Lots of colors in that one. Okay.
Yes.
Next up is the Carita. Did I pronounce that right, Brian?
Yeah, I think so. So Carita is a Syngenta variety, and it comes in 3 different colors. We've got the purple here, the raspberry, and the white. And we've got the white and the raspberry there. But it's like an upright to kind of spreading. Works great in the combos for that thriller, kind of that upright plant that brings the focus and gives that verticality to a planter. Works also good in the landscape. So, in larger mass plantings, and that's Carita.
So I'm going to go back.
Oh, we have Carita Cascade there too.
Whoops, sorry.
Yeah. So Carita Cascade is the cousin to Carita, and as the name alludes to, it's more spilling. So it works great in hanging baskets on its own, but then also for those combination planters that you want to kind of spill over the side and get that mounding look, you can use the Carita Cascade.
So based on what you guys have said thus far, I'm already very impressed because it looks like you have the taller ones, the medium height ones, the trailing, the cascade. So there really literally is an Angelonia for everybody. And I think the best advice I can give is make sure you always read those tags. When you're in the garden center, make sure you read the tags so you know how it's going to perform. That way you know where to plant it. Okay, I think the next one then is you, Stephen, correct?
It is. So Serena is one of our 2 series. So Serena is going to be our taller of the 2 series. So it's going to work great in the landscape. It works great in containers or as a centerpiece in mixed containers. So typically Serena in the ground is used more in the northern half of the country because they need a plant with a little more vigor in the northern half of the country. And so in Serena, we have several colors. We have the blue here, we have the white, and then we have the purple, the rose, the lavender, and then we have some mixes as well.
Awesome. Okay. And then the Serenita.
So Serenita is our other series. In Serenita, this one's going to be a little bit shorter. So it's going to, again, be great in the landscape. You can use it in smaller containers as well. This is one that I typically don't recommend as a centerpiece in a combo because of the height. But this is the variety that most of the people in the southern half of the U.S. like to use in the landscape because while it's our shorter series in the south and the heat, it still gets quite a bit of height to it. And several colors in this. We have the purple, we have the raspberry, and then I think on the next slide, you have our cherry and our purple, or our rose, our sky blue, and our white. And we have several mixes in this as well.
And I have to mention that the pink is an AES winner. So that one, I think, about 3 or 4 years ago, it was an AES winner.
It was.
Yes, yes. Okay, great. Well, thank you, everybody. I'm going to go, I'm just going to quit sharing my screen because that was our presentation. And now we want to look at your lovely faces as we go through some of the rest of my questions, which are, and I think you alluded to it a little bit because it sounds like there's a lot of different ways to use Angelonia, but I heard you mention in ground, I heard you mention in containers, I heard you mention baskets, combinations. You can kind of use them in any way you want, right? Is there any?
Yes.
Certain,
as long as you have good sun.
Good sun.
And they like the summer heat. So I think Brian had mentioned when he was talking about the comparison between the snapdragon and then Angelonia being called summer snapdragon, it wouldn't be one that you would use along with your early cool season. Like right now, you wouldn't want to put it with pansies or it definitely likes warm temperatures. So once after the danger of frost, you could start putting it in your garden. And sunny location, or at least half day sun with full exposure to the sun, not in the shade. I've seen it perform a little bit in the shade, but you really want to pick a nice sunny location and good well-drained soil. That's the key to that there. So.
And what about the water needs?
I wouldn't say that it was definitely drought tolerant, but it definitely is a low water consumer. It will tolerate drier conditions. It doesn't like to be super wet, just well-drained soil. You wouldn't want to put it in the ground that has that is not amended well, that does not drain well. And it will survive without water for a little bit, but moderately moist, well-drained soil is the key.
And I think all of you, you travel all over. So Stephen, let's say I heard you talk about, this one's for the South, this one's for the North. So let's just kind of go back through that again on the regional differences. We have people from all over on our webinar. So if you've got, start with me. I'm in Chicago. What would I want to do? I obviously am going to wait until after the first frost. Now, if I put them in containers, could I plant them a little bit earlier, or should I still not get too overeager in the spring?
I personally would wait until it warms up a little bit. I'm sorry, I interrupted someone there.
Yeah,
Nope,
no,
you're good.
I would say the same thing. It's like, I know people are always eager, and I'm in Iowa, and it's like May 15th is the frost-free date. So a lot of people are like, okay, it's May 15th. I'm going out, and like that's like the average frost-free date, right? I've definitely seen frosts in Iowa in the Des Moines area, like in late May. So, and Angelonia is not going to be one of those that like can tolerate that at all. So, this would be one of the later ones that I plant, because otherwise it's going to just, in those cooler temperatures, especially those cooler night temperatures, it's just kind of gonna sit there and not really thrive. So like in my area, like in the Chicago, Des Moines area, like closer to June is when I would probably put it out, even in containers.
Yeah, I think if you think about Angelonia and use it the same way you would use Vinca, I think most people are very familiar with Vinca. So Vinca's that heat-loving summer crop. So Angelonia falls right in line with that. So if you're planting your Vinca, now's a good time to plant your Angelonia. If you're planting Vinca in 6 weeks or 8 weeks, that's when you'd want to plant your Angelonia. So I'd really kind of use it as same timing as Vinca.
Okay, that's a great tip. And I was also thinking while you were talking, like let's say I'm busy in the spring, or I've got my pansies and they really still are looking good until like mid-June. So then it's a good swap out for when that summer heat hits. And so I'm assuming, yeah. So the retailers would probably be like, okay, we're not going to have this out in colder climates early in the season. They're going to wait. So it'd be a great way. And I'm looking at some of the colors, like do a red, white, and blue combination for 4th of July. So that summer heat is definitely the time to be planting them.
Diane, I just saw a question pop up about Washington, and the question was, is it a perennial there? So Angelonia is an annual. So especially when you're looking at Washington in the northern areas, it's definitely an annual. In the deep South, you might get it to perennialize, but Angelonia is technically an annual. So I would treat it as an annual. I'd plan for it to be an annual, and I'd plan to, as I go into fall, as I get those cooler temperatures, that's when you want to come in with your fall plantings again.
Great. Yeah. And I was just going to look at those questions too, because it looks like there's a question about, do they grow in clay soil?
Well, that goes back to my point about well-drained soil. And you could plant, if you have traditionally clay soil, and you would want to amend the soil, or possibly, I prefer to have a nice raised area. And this is just general gardening. Invest in the soil more than you do the plant. So it's really, you'll have so much more success with your gardens if you prepare the soil well. So you can even, you don't have to have a structure to have a raised bed, but maybe a mound of really good soil, and break up the clay below and then amend it up on top with really nice, well-prepared soil, well-drained soil, good potting soil, good peat. And that's really important for all your garden plants. Personally, that's how I feel. So
yeah, and it's hard, right? Because it's not flashy to invest in your soil. It's like buying insulation for your house. Like nobody gets to see it, but it really
makes it's not cheap either.
You're right.
But it's very, very
so
important.
much.
Yeah.
But it's not going to just help you this season. It's going to help you next season and the following season to continue to invest in that soil.
My rule of thumb is if I can dig the hole with my hands, then it's good soil. If I can't, and I'm trying to put, plants in it, it's probably not good soil. You need to amend it.
That's a very good rule of thumb to follow.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I always say that too. Like the two first things you need to know for a new gardener, you need to know your growing zone and you have to have good soil. Without those two things, I'm sorry, anybody is not going to be successful because they're not going to know which plants to plant where. Which leads me to another question. Somebody is asking which zones are best. And I think what I'm hearing is it's not necessarily the zone that you're in, it's plant them during the heat of the summer, assuming the summer is where you're at. I mean, we could be dealing with across the world, but yeah, so planting it in the heat of the summer is best for Angelonia, really.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
It
I would say
performs
just
really
like
well
on
all
the
through North America.
yeah, and like approaching the heat of the summer, like if I were to plant Angelonia in July, like it's going to be hard for it to really take off. If I plant it in Memorial Day, where the days are nice and comfortable, and the nights are comfortable, and then it gets established before it gets hot. That's when you're going to have really good success.
I think that's a really good point because I was thinking of in the South, if you went out in the middle of July, anything really when it's super hot, it may not be successful. But maybe like when your temperatures start reaching 70 and above, and your night temperatures are above 55 to 60, then you can start thinking about Angelonia.
Great. Okay. Now, Stephen, it looks like we've got a question for you. Any special techniques starting from seed? Somebody's tried them with a few times with limited success on germination.
Yeah, so Angelonias are a tough one from seed. It's tough for us to produce the seed. It's tough to grow it from seed as well. So really the tricks, it's got to be warm. Your soil temperature has to be warm. So the seed's not going to germinate if that soil temperature is below 72, 74 degrees. So it's one of those that requires the warm temperature. And then it requires adequate moisture. You don't want it to be dripping wet, but it needs to stay nice and moist while that seed's germinating. And then as soon as it germinates, you need to make sure it has plenty of light so that the plants will grow and not stretch. So really those are the keys, is that heat's really the big one.
So if you want a little bit of a challenge, this is not like growing a pea. It's a little bit of a challenge. Like I will admit, I'm trying to grow begonias for the first time from seed this year, and TBD. We'll see what happens. It's what, April 4th, and I still don't have much. One more question on the seed. Do you soak the seed before planting?
No, you don't need to soak the seed.
Do you cover them, or do they need light to germinate?
No, you can go ahead and cover them, and then just do a light cover on them. And really, if you're trying to do it in the ground, I think you're going to have a lot harder time. If you're trying to do it in a container or plug tray or something, you're going to be more successful with it.
Okay. Yep. Heat mats. This is what they're saying. So
Yep.
angel green begonias are with heat mats and Angelonia. Okay. Somebody had asked about pollinators, specifically, I think hummingbirds, but let's just talk all in all, because on one of the slides, I was like, okay, I see pollen all over that flower. It was obviously magnified, but let's talk about what kind of pollinators like Angelonia.
So Angelonia is a great pollinator. It's attractive to hummingbirds, butterflies, bees, really a wide range of pollinators. So it's definitely, if you're trying to do a pollinator garden, it's definitely one to have in your pollinator garden. And I encourage you to mix the different colors because some species are attracted to certain colors. And then I would make sure I also add other pollinator plants with the Angelonia because a mix of plants is going to attract more pollinators than just having one certain plant. So if you're trying to do a pollinator plant, Angelonia is going to be a great one to have in there, and I'd mix others in there as well.
So Maria, Brian, any experience or testimonials on pollinators, what you've enjoyed seeing in your gardens?
I think the hummingbirds is my favorite, and they, even when we have we just came from a large show to the greenhouse industry, and we get the hummingbirds in the greenhouses, and they're all over the Angelonia too. So my favorites are the hummingbirds. So
Yeah, when we have Angelonia in our yard, we have a beekeeper that keeps a bunch of hives on our property, and they're, you know, they love the Angelonia. So it's definitely especially in that summertime when sometimes like the bloom, there's a lull in the blooms because of the heat from other species. Like the Angelonia fills that gap really nice.
Excellent. Okay, so we're talking about the cute critters that come to our Angelonia. What about the not so cute critters? What kind of pests are attracted, or diseases will we have to deal with Angelonia, and how do you deal with that?
I don't see many pests attack Angelonia too much in the garden personally. I haven't had too many problems with it. That's my personal experience. I would say that they are definitely pest free, but they don't, they're not problematic specifically. So
I'd consider them a very low maintenance. You don't have a lot of pests.
Yeah.
You don't have a lot of disease. You don't have to do a lot of work to them. You don't have to go prune them a lot. You don't have to deadhead them a lot. They're just a fairly low maintenance. Really feed them and keep them watered, and they'll be happy.
Okay, let's talk about fertilizer. That was one of the questions that I had on my list. They're an annual, so they probably need a little fertilizer. What do you recommend? Dosage, frequency, etc.?
I personally, oh, go ahead, Brian.
For just about any of my combination planters, my patio pots that I do, or I should really say my wife does. I do with my hands, and she directs. But we always do some slow release fertilizer in there. It's really the easiest thing to do because it's you can get ones that are going to last all season long, for at least in my climate. And it's kind of the best set it and forget it type of thing for the homeowner. You don't have to come back and apply it. So just a good, well-rounded slow release fertilizer. I like to say you get what you pay for. So don't go buy the cheapest one that's on the shelf. That's a pretty good rule of thumb. And because like the cheaper ones might release everything early on, and they don't require a ton of fertility. They need some fertility, but they're not a high feeder. So that slow release fertilizer works really well.
And I just want to add for the northern area, the slow release, if you're looking at it, you might see a 3-month, and a 3-month probably works well in the north. In the south, you need to use something for more like a 6-month. On the slow release, they typically have how many months they'll release. So you know, in the south, you might be planting Angelonia as early as April or May, and it'll bloom till September. So you're going to need more than a 3-month, or you put the slow release in there, and then later in the season, you can follow up with either an additional application of slow release, or you could do some, you know, liquid feeds or something as well.
Yeah,
That's kind of what I like to do, and I'm in the South. I think it also depends on how much water or how much rain you're having, and that'll affect how quickly your slow release is released and depleted in the soil. So I personally like to plant with a slow release in my containers and in the ground, and then I come back every couple weeks and just touch up with a liquid, or there's ones that's kind of granular, but it's type of a liquid feed that you do the granular and then you water it in. I like that. That's very easy to use, and I like to touch up my containers and in the ground with that. I say every couple weeks. It ends up being at least once a month apart, but I try to, and you'll see great results. And I did see a question there about deadheading, and I know that sometimes Angelonia will stall blooming, and meaning they'll kind of stop blooming as much as they had. And I like to cut them back, meaning cut the dead blooms off, and then give them a good shot of fertilizer, and then they'll just branch and come on full force again.
So as far as
So I hope that
timing for doing that, so it's more
in the
observation.
south there is.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
So it's kind of if you see them starting to slow down and go into a little bit of dormancy, so we call it, that would be a good time to do the deadheading and
Yes.
refertilizing.
Yes.
Okay, great. Thank you. So let's see. I asked that question. So what about some of the best uses, or what are some of your favorite things to combine it with? I mean, you already said don't combine it with like pansies. What are some other great plants where you might use the Angelonia as the thriller? What else would you put around with it? What are some of your favorite combos?
Well, I'll just talk about the south. And I'll still Stephen's thunder there a little bit. I like it with vinca, but I also like it with lantanas, purslane, dichondra, anything that loves heat and full sun would be good components. And we even with tropical plants like your hibiscus and your mandevillas and things like that. So those are some of my favorites.
I agree with Maria. With Angelonia, you've got so
Right.
many different colors, and so you can match it with anything that blooms during the summer. So whatever does well in your area for the summer, you can find a habit, you can find an upright, you can find a more trailing, you can find a color. So Angelonia works with just about anything that you'd have over the summer.
Yeah, I don't have a lot to add to that other than like just being creative. Like not only do we have a lot of colors, but we've got the different habits that we talked about. So you don't have to be limited to using it as that thriller. You know, the spreading types, the cascading types work good as the spillers. And like Maria said, like getting that tropical feel. There's more and more tropical plants that are available in the garden centers that are really good example that's getting a lot more play is dipladenias or mandevillas. They work really good in combos and add that cool factor of that tropical look when you're not in a tropical area.
Also for the northern climates that use a lot of geraniums and such, you know, just a classic look would be, you know, red geranium with angel miss white or the cascadia or the cascade white, Carita. I'm sorry, Carita cascade. What, you know, a trailing type or the more cascading types would look beautiful with the red Angelonia and red geranium and maybe a blue lobelia or something like that for a real classic look in the more northern areas.
Great. So one of the things I was thinking of when you were talking about like the taller ones, have you ever tried using these as cut flowers? Do they last indoors? Are the stems strong enough?
Yes. And yes, you could use the upright ones as a cut flower and they last, you know, nicely along with your other cut flowers. And then some of the newer ones that will be coming out have even longer stems.
Great, great. So I have a question about the cascading one. So let's say you're putting that in a hanging basket. Will it fill in the center? Would you recommend doing another? I mean, you could do another Angelonia in the center, but that's what I was just thinking. Is it bred to be more mounding and cascading, or just cascading where you want to mix it with something else? What's the best advice there?
Yeah, I think it comes down to a lot of the size of hanging basket that you're using. And when you buy hanging baskets at the garden center, even if they're a single species, there's probably anywhere from 3 to 7 plants in that hanging basket, depending on the size. So like an 8 or a 10-inch basket, you're probably going to want 3 to really get that full look. if it's bigger, keep adding plants in there. The general rule is like we like to work in odds because it usually fills the space a little bit nicer and when you use odd numbers. So I would definitely do multiple plants in a hanging basket.
I find with the Archangel Mist series, that's a more horizontally branched type of form of the Angelonia, and it really depends on what you're mixing it with. If you mix it with a strong upright component or mounded component, such as, like I said, as a geranium along a vigorous geranium, say in the center, then the Angel Mist will be kind of around the edges. If you mix it with a low growing, say purslane or such, then it's going to be kind of in the middle, and then the purslane is going to hang down along the side. We have a new one coming for 2025 that's called Angel Flare, and that's going to be more conducive to mixing within. It's going to fill in the center and around the edges too. It has a little bit of a different habit. So it just depends on, like I said, the Angel Mist is more around the edges. It's going to be a mounding, kind of cascading somewhat, but it's not going to hang directly down the side of the pots.
Great. Fulfilling another need. So this next question isn't specific to Angelonia, but you guys are experts. So I've just heard a lot of chatter like, oh, I'm buying, okay, Mother's Day is coming up in a month. I bought my mom a hanging basket, and 4 weeks, 5 weeks later, it just felt like it was done. So how do we keep our hanging baskets healthy?
I think on hanging baskets, I think feeding them is going to be critical. Anything that is a blooming plant, which all your hanging baskets pretty much are, require a little more feed to produce those flowers and to continue to produce those flowers. So when you buy it, there's fertilizer in there from the growers, but over time that fertilizer is used up by the plants. When you water, if you water a lot and you have water draining out the bottom of your hanging basket, it's actually taking some of those nutrients out of the soil and washing them out onto the ground. So it's very easy for plants in containers and baskets to become hungry. And so really the best way is to feed them. And then just as a general rule, some plants you might need to do a little pruning on if they start to get a lot of brown on them or something, or some plants need a little more deadheading than others. And so just doing some basic trimming on some of your baskets and stuff too will help.
And like, I totally agree. The fertility is usually the number one thing with hanging baskets that if you think about, you've got, like I was talking about, 3 to 5 to 7 plants, and they can pull the nutrients out really effectively, and just replenishing that. And watering, it's like, I think one of the things that I see the most in homeowner failures are improper watering, either too much or not enough. And hanging baskets usually fall into the not enough. Like once it's in the summertime and they're completely filled out, on a warm summer day, they might need to be watered every single day. And the best rule of thumb is pick it up. Like how heavy is it? And that will tell you, like, if you go to reach up and it comes up off of the hanger really easy, you probably need to water it. And then just because there's water running out the bottom doesn't mean that it's saturated. Because as that pot dries out, the substrate will shrink and pull away from the pot. And a lot of times when it gets dry, everything that you put in the top comes right out the bottom. So if it gets really dry, I like to have like a bucket or a kiddie pool, and you dunk it in there for 2 minutes, and then pull it back out so that it really saturates that substrate.
So I think like what Brian is saying is sometimes take them down and look at them and feel the soil. If you can't lift them to see the weight, or with all your plants, if you're in doubt, feel the soil, and it should be, kind of dry on top, and then they need watered. And then in a hanging basket, also the soil will pull away from the side of the pot when it's super dry. And, that's always a good sign that you need to water. But, if in doubt, kind of pull them down and fertilize them again and water them really heavily. Put them out in the rain sometime, but just to kind of get that rainwater on them if they're under a covered area. But I have to agree with both Brian and Stephen, is fertility is the one key. They're coming from greenhouses, kind of like a nursery, and they're getting pampered and they're getting fed regularly, and then you bring them home and you're not keeping that same schedule, and they decline a little bit. So the fertility is really important too.
Yeah, thanks. I've always wanted to ask that question because I feel like hanging baskets are so popular, but it's so easy to fail with a hanging basket.
Right.
Yeah, and you think about it, like we talked about investing in your soil, and hanging baskets typically are not super cheap. They're a premium price point at most garden centers. So there's incentive there to take care of them and make sure that they're watered. I mean, that being said, I'm guilty of letting my hanging basket dry out and die. So don't beat yourself up if it happens.
And remember,
but really
wind.
nice when they're worthwhile.
Yeah.
Remember the wind. If you're in an area of the country that is really windy, a hot windy day will dry a basket out, or even a container or a plant, very, very quickly. Baskets are more susceptible because they're hanging up in the air, so that hot wind blows all around them, under them, on top of them. So just remember, on a windy day, you're going to need to water a little more.
And that reminds me too of like what kind of pot you have it in. If it's a plastic pot, it's going to hold water a little bit better. If it's a cocoa fiber or even a clay pot, they dry out faster because they're porous, and it lets air in through the whole, like from the whole side, as opposed to plastic being impermeable to the air. So that factors into how much you water it as well.
And I know one beginning grower or gardener, not a grower, that I was working with thought, oh, well, it's a hanging basket and it's outside, so it's getting rain. But you have to remember where it is. It's under an eave, or if you have a pot that's on your patio, maybe there's a roof line or something protecting it. Maybe half the pot gets water and the other half does not. So just being observant and aware of where your plants are, where your containers are, whether it be Angelonia or anything else. So I see that we have a question that looks pretty technical here. Are Angelonias photoperiod sensitive? Will they flower on both short day and long days?
Well, I think first let's talk about what photoperiod sensitive means and what short day and long days mean, right?
There you go. Let's start there.
You're speaking our language. We love the technical stuff, but let's define those a little bit. So photoperiod is what we talk about is the length of the day, the length that the sun is shining, and so that's the photoperiod. And short day plants, they flower when there's generally less than 12 hours of day length. A classic example is your potted chrysanthemum. They flower when it's short days. And then long days are when your days are longer than 12 hours. And if you really want to get technical, it's not really the photoperiod, it's the nighttime. But we'll leave that alone. So I'm not sure about the varieties that Stephen and Maria have in their companies, but the Syngenta varieties are day neutral, and I would imagine they are. I'll let Stephen and Maria, they're shaking their heads yes.
Yes, day neutral. Heat induced.
It's all about the heat, not about the light. Yeah. Okay.
But a great question, because a lot of our annuals are photoperiodic, and Angelonia is one that's not.
Great. So I'm kind of thinking maybe we want to use the last few minutes, 5 or 10, whatever we have. Let's just talk about some other fun facts about Angelonia. So of course, the very first one I thought of when we were in the beginning talking about snapdragons Can you make these snap? Can you make these little flowers snap like you do snapdragons, or do they just kind of have the appearance of snapdragons?
I don't think you can make these snap. Maybe I'm wrong, but they kind of have that little face though. That's where I think where it gets the name like a snap.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe someone else can chime in, but I don't think you can snap them.
I don't
Okay.
think so either.
That's okay. That doesn't make them any less attractive to grow.
Right. They
Yeah.
don't have that hinge, you know?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, what about any other fun facts? What do you guys see out there? Are the growers embracing Angelonia more than they used to? Are they becoming more popular with some climate change?
Yeah, I would
Well, I think-
say we definitely see more growers doing more Angelonias. It's becoming more popular, especially in some of the mixed containers. And I think with some of the new colors that have come out, some of the new habits that have come out, it just enables Angelonias to be used in a lot of ways that they weren't able to be used 4, 5, 6 years ago. And I think with some of the breakthroughs that all three companies have coming in the next few years, it'll continue to widen the availability and the use of Angelonias.
Yeah, and I
I
think
agree with Stephen.
when using it in the garden, like I mean, I would consider this a bit of a fun fact. And this is me channeling my wife, the designer, is like it offers such a great texture. Oftentimes, like the novice gardener or the beginner gardener is so focused on color, and then they start thinking like, okay, color through the season, but the next level is texture. You get an Angelonia really adds a really cool texture to your garden, like I would really stress to start looking at that.
And I'll just elaborate on that a little bit more. The series we have is Angel Dance. When you're looking at it in that respect, it does kind of sway in the wind because it's very flexible, and it does have actually, really add another additional texture or movement to the garden too. So you can use them as backdrops, mid-range in the ground, or borders. So the really high utility.
And somebody just asked a question about using them medicinally in South America. First of all, we're not endorsing anything, so we're not telling you
I just
do that. But do you know what they're used for?
I don't. I just was looking at all the different species, preparing a little bit more to see what else, and I even went back to our breeders to ask what other species they use in breeding, and the Guscifolia was the main one, but I really can't comment any further on that. It was the let me look at my notes here. I think it was the Carifolia one that noted that it had medicinal qualities, but that's all I know. I retract that phrase. I don't know.
Anybody can Google it and find out, but we're not endorsing, we're not telling you.
Yeah, I'm so sorry.
Like that. So somebody is asking, okay, what if we have part sun rather than full sun? Would you say that there's one variety out there that maybe does better for part sun?
I would define part sun. What does that mean exactly? Is it filtered light? Or does it mean that it's going to get full sun for 2 or 3 hours? Is it filtered underneath the tree? I know at our ball gardens, I have seen them live and bloom under more of a filtered, dappered light, but whether they're going to flourish, that's a different story, and bloom profusely. I would just try it if you're that curious. So that's what I know. I've seen it a little bit, but I would definitely define what you mean by part sun. So,
and she just added that dappled from mature trees.
I would say they're probably not going to do that well unless they get some direct sunlight, even if it's a few hours in the afternoon or something. Unless they're going to get some amount of direct sunlight, I don't think they're going to perform that well. You just won't get the plant may live and grow, but you just won't get the bloom. You won't get the bloom power.
Totally agree.
Yeah.
There's a whole lot of other things that can go in that area.
Yeah. Yeah.
Do you have a few ideas, Stephen?
Oh, you could do impatiens, begonias. I mean, there's a whole bunch of stuff. So that can be a whole different call.
Yeah, exactly. That's another webinar. Oh, I think we have a blog on shade. So yeah. But yeah, don't make it hard on yourself. If you know that these need sun to bloom, plant them in sun, choose something else. It's hard when you get your heart set on something. It's like, oh, I really want those. You know, we've all done that over the years, right? Like, oh, well, surely there's enough sun here, or surely there's enough shade here. But right plant, right place. That's our mantra. Okay, let's see here. This always works perfect. I have 3 minutes left. I have 3 panelists. So each of you has 60 seconds for your final closing thoughts about gardening with Angelonia.
If you have sun all day, plant Angelonia.
You stole everybody's thunder with that one.
I'm sorry.
For me, I would say definitely add Angelonia to your containers in your gardens. It's a great pollinator plant. I really enjoy watching the pollinators. And so use it for that sunny area, like Maria just said, but use it to bring in the pollinators, the stuff that's fun to watch.
Okay. And Brian.
Yeah, and I would say like if you're going to use it in ground, plant it in masses. Like 1 or 2 plants in the ground is not going to give you the effect that you want. Buy a flat and plant them at the appropriate spacing for what the tag says, so that you get a wide swath. That's where you're going to get that benefit from that texture that we were talking about, that movement in the wind. And you'll get those pollinators you'll really see the pollinators when it's in a big mass.
I love it. 3 great tips. And here this happens every time. I've told the story numerous times, but Gail and I here in the office, every time we get these articles for our year of crops, I mean, both of us have been gardening for a long time, but we read these articles and we're like, wow, I didn't know that. Oh, that's so intriguing. I'm going to try that this year. So you've convinced both of us again. We definitely will be planting some Angelonia this year. Love the idea of planting it in mass. Love it, love it, love it. So with that, sorry, our hour is up, but we got to keep these things to an hour because I know everybody's busy, but we really, really appreciate your information. Great tips, very enjoyable webinar. So thank you, Maria, Brian, and Stephen, and I hope you have a happy gardening season.